Well then, let's sink our teeth right in to this month's horror talk. Stay tuned. Why, hello there YouTube and welcome to this month's horror talk. I am Random Ross and every month or so I always do a horror retrospective on a horror franchise or a horror icon. This month I thought I would do a discussion on the Hannibal franchise. So yes, we all know in horror who Hannibal Lecter is, or known as Hannibal the Cannibal. And in this we're going to be talking throughout the films he's been in, and yeah, so let's get on with it. So, Hannibal Lecter. So, the film, it all started from the 1981 novel named Red Dragon, written by Thomas Harris. And in 1986 they adapted this into a movie, a low-budget made-for-TV film, I think. It's a psychological thriller called Manhunter, which starred William Peterson as Will Graham and Brian Cox as Hannibal Lecter. Yes, Brian Cox was not the first. Anthony Hopkins was not the first actor to play Hannibal Lecter. It was Scottish actor Brian Cox, and this film I feel is underrated and very much forgotten about. But this was the first on-screen adaptation of Hannibal Lecter. Of course, William Peterson plays Will Graham, but other actors were considered for the role, such as Richard Gere, Mel Gibson, and Paul Newman, and we got Brian Cox as the infamous Hannibal Lecter. And again, the role was offered to other actors such as John Lithgow, Mandy Patinkin, and Brian Denny, but we ended up having Brian Cox play Hannibal Lecter, and he does a great job in that role too, playing Hannibal. But of course, everyone knows Hannibal from the movie, from the there's the 1986 film Manhunter, but everyone knows him better, played by Anthony Hopkins in the 1991 classic that is The Silence of the Lambs. Now, The Silence of the Lambs was released in 1981, and we had hang on a minute, just let me make it a lot easier. The Silence of the Lambs. There we go. So, The Silence of the Lambs came out. It's a psychological horror that starred Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, Scott Glenn, and Ted Levine. So, this was a film where trainee FBI agent Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, was investigating this serial killer known as Buffalo Bill, who was greatly inspired by Ed Gein, who we all know inspired Leatherface and Norman Bates. In this, they're hunting for Buffalo Bill, who wants to make a female skin suit so he can be a woman, because he likes to identify as a woman, and he kidnaps women, makes them rub lotion on the skin, or else he gets the hose again and tortures them and before killing them and skinning them. And in this, they get, Clarice goes to this maximum prison where she seeks the help of psychiatrist Dr. Hannibal Lector, this time played by Anthony Hopkins, and he puts up a chilling performance. This was one of the first, well, this was a horror film that got an Oscar for its, greatness, and I can see why. And Anthony Hopkins, he steals the show in every single scene he's in. In fact, this is the role that introduced me to the man, that is Anthony Hopkins. And despite him being such an iconic character, he only had like 15 minutes of screen time in the first film. And of course, in this we see Clarice hunting down Buffalo Bill, and she does, after a chase and a fight and everything. And then Hannibal, he escapes from his maximum prison and has an old friend for dinner at the end, as he says to Clarice when he's hiding. So yeah, we, that is The Silence of the Lambs. But of course, that wasn't the end of the series, not by a long shot. We got the 10 years later, so it took about a decade. So 2001, they made a sequel called Hannibal, which starred Anthony Hopkins returning to his role. But this time around, Clarice was replaced by Julianne Moore after Jodie Foster looked at the script and thought, nope, I'm not doing that. And, again, it's like she's trying to find Hannibal, but he's always one step ahead. But, Hannibal has more screen time in this, and Anthony Hopkins does brilliant in this, including the scene where he cuts the top of a guy's head off. What's his name? And feeds him a little bit of his brain, which I think is like pretty, grim. So yeah, oh yeah, of course, The Silence of the Lambs. That was The Silence of the Lambs was written by Ted Talley and directed by Jonathan Demme. The film adaptation, still based around the characters by Thomas Harris on his book of the same name, The Silence of the Lambs, because he wrote more than just one book. He wrote Red Dragon and The Silence of the Lambs, and then he wrote Hannibal as well, which was a book from 1999, and The Silence of the Lambs was a book from 1988. Of course, they did, however, eventually do the Hannibal film. They skipped Red Dragon just to get to The Silence of the Lambs. But they did do Red Dragon eventually, but they made that a prequel. We'll get to that shortly. So this one was directed by Ridley Scott. And in this, Anthony Hopkins returns as Hannibal, munching away. In this, we even get a performance from an unrecognisable Gary Oldman, who's all deformed in this because he was an old acquaintance of Hannibal. But I would not have known that was Gary Oldman until I did not even know it was Gary Oldman until I watched the credits of that film. That just shows how good an actor Gary Oldman is. Julianne Moore, she was okay as Clarice, but she had big shoes to fill in for Jodie Foster, who didn't want to return for this one. And of course, in 2003, we got the third film, which served as a prequel because they wanted it to be chronologically done like the book series was. We got the third film, which is a prequel called Red Dragon from 2002. It's psychological horror. This time the role of Will Graham is played by Ed Norton. We get Ralph Fiennes in this as the Tooth Fairy, who is a serial killer that they're hunting for in this. And this serial killer, the Tooth Fairy, believes by doing these kills he can become the Red Dragon. And I like this one. In fact, I love the ending. When the film ends and Hannibal's like there in his cell and he's told someone's coming, and we know it's Clarice, so pretty much the very end of that movie goes back to the beginning of The Silence of the Lambs, and I love that. I love that on prequels when they do that. I don't know why, I just get right excited when a prequel ends, but it directly continues on into the the previous movie. I don't know why. I got that feeling when I watched Rogue One, but there you go. Ed Norton, I think, is good in this role as Will. And this was also the last time, to my knowing, that Anthony Hopkins played Hannibal Lecter on screen. Because after that, we got the fourth movie. And the fourth movie, of course, was called Hannibal Rising. This one was before the Silence of the Lambs, before Red Dragon. We got to see a whole origin story on the, Hannibal Lecter, which came out in 2007 and was a prequel to the Hannibal Trilogy. And in this, it says it's the fifth film. I mean, there was Manhunter, but in those films with Anthony Hopkins, I don't consider those films. I don't consider Manhunter canon, but I guess it is the fifth film adaptation of Hannibal. But in this, because it's a prequel, Hannibal Lecter is played by a French actor. Now I'm going to butcher the guy's name, so Gaspard Ullipios. This follows Hannibal Lecter as a young person, a med student, that is on a revenge mission to avenge the 3 war criminals that killed his sister and ate her in front of him. And he kills them in brutal ways and torturous ways, and we see how he gets his taste for human flesh when he bites off their cheeks and what have you on their face. This is a pretty gruesome and bleak film, but I love how we see, what made Hannibal tick, what made him the crazed killer we all know him as now. And I liked it. I actually liked this one. I mean, yeah, we didn't have Anthony Hopkins playing Hannibal, but still, the kid who played him was good enough in this to play a young Lecter. And, it was just, seeing Hannibal rise. This was set, the opening part of the film was set in the war, and then then after that, this film's set in the 50s, like a good 30 years or so before Red Dragon and the Silence of the Lambs. So, yeah, I loved that prequel. It was surprisingly good, and the guy who they had for Hannibal, yeah, I kind of can see him morphing into Anthony Hopkins and such. Yeah, it was an enjoyable origin story. But did we need an origin story? Well, it was good to see Hannibal's past, that he had a dark past. And the whole mask, the whole iconic mask he wears. In Hannibal Rising, we see he's just putting on the bottom of a samurai mask, which I think's pretty cool. And of course that mask, he only ever wore that mask in one scene in The Silence of the Lambs. But, that's become a Halloween costume of choice these days, wearing a Hannibal Lecter mask. That's what they're called, cannibal masks, or human muzzles I think they're called. So he can't bite people. But of course, Hannibal does have these brutal ways of killing, which again makes him such an iconic horror character. That was it for the film series of the Hannibal franchise. We did, however, get a TV adaptation of Hannibal, and that was called Hannibal, which was a psychological horror thriller series which it ran between 2013 and 2015. It ran for 3 seasons and was cancelled by NBC. This starred Danish actor Mads Mikkelsen, Hugh Dancy, Caroline Devernis or something, and Lawrence Fishburne, and had other actors in, including Eddie Izzard in a couple episodes. So this was following Hannibal when he was a psychiatrist and was set before the Silence of the Lambs, but was also sort of a soft reboot as well. In fact, when the show got cancelled, it was going to start sort of going to the recreations of the Silence of the Lambs. Like, they were going to bring Clarice into it, but like I say, that show got cancelled and we never got to see that after 3 seasons, with it ending on a cliffhanger. Literally a cliffhanger when Will and Hannibal go down a cliff together. Yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment, but I will admit it did kind of go down in quality for me in the 3rd season. I watched the first 2 seasons, I binge watched them on Netflix, and the 3rd one, it was okay. I feel like it should have at least got the chance to wrap things up though with a 4th season if they had to cancel it. Yeah, I hate it when they do that, when they cancel a good TV show and it's left with unanswered questions. You know, it's really gutting to me. But there we go, the Hannibal franchise. So, yeah, like I say, I like the character of Hannibal Lecter. Now for my ranking of the films. I'm going to rank the films, so I won't rank the TV series, just the films. So for my, for number 5, it's got to be. See, it's tough because all these films I think are good. But for number 5, I'll put Hannibal Rising. Number 5, number 4, Red Dragon. Number 2, Hannibal. In fact, no, change that around. Number 4, Hannibal. Number 3, Hannibal. Hang on, let's just go through it again. So, number 5, I should have written this down. Number 5, Hannibal Rising. Number 4, Hannibal. Number 3, yeah, number 4. Number 5, Hannibal Rising. Number 4, Manhunter. Number 3, Hannibal. Number 2, Red Dragon. And my number 1 pick for this film rankings would be The Silence of the Lambs, which I think is the best one. And like I say, Hannibal doesn't have a lot of screen time in it, but my god, he makes those minutes count in the film. So there we are, my horror talk on Hannibal Lecter and the franchise. This has been more of a discussion on Hannibal Lecter, but like I say, I do want these horror talk episodes to go not as long as they usually are, because, well, it's just, I just want to try and keep the short so I'm not dragging things out. I don't know how long I've filmed for, but yeah. Okay, so what time is it now? 10 to 3. 10 to 3 when filming this, so I think I've been talking for a good 20 minutes. I don't know. I'll find out when I'm editing and what have you how long this video is going to be. But anyway, if you have been watching it all the way through, I thank you. So yeah, if you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, share with your friends, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and you're new here. No pressure, but feel free to do so. I upload main videos every Friday and horror movie reviews whenever, whether it be a movie or a TV series. So anyway, yeah, that's it for this horror talk, for this month's horror talk. So, until next time, don't have nightmares. That's me trying to do Hannibal. See ya.